Inside that now-burning vehicle was 18-year-old Alijah Arenas, the high school basketball prodigy known to hoops insiders as one of the most electrifying talents of his generation. The son of NBA legend Gilbert Arenas and reality star Laura Govan, Alijah had carved out his own identity on the court. With an average of 31 points and nearly 8 rebounds per game, he wasn't just a highlight machine. He was a 5-star recruit who had committed to USC and already inked a sponsorship deal with Adidas. But at that moment, none of that mattered. All that mattered was survival. A neighbor, who later spoke with TMZ Sports, recalled being jolted awake by the gut-wrenching noise. Half asleep but full of adrenaline, he rushed outside and was met with a scene that could only be described as apocalyptic. Flames were licking the air from the front end of the Tesla, thick smoke blanketed the area, and water from the sheared fire hydrant was gushing like a geyser, flooding the streets and creating a growing pool that reflected the flickering orange of the fire. And there, amidst the chaos, was Alijah. He was trapped inside. From the outside, it was difficult to see him at first, shrouded by smoke and chaos, but then his silhouette became clear through the windshield. The neighbor, joined by other Good Samaritans who had stumbled out of their homes in pajamas and slippers, approached the wreckage, their feet quickly soaked by the rising water. The situation was dire. Every second that passed meant another second of Alijah inhaling toxic fumes and suffering under the unbearable heat. They had no choice but to act. With no time to wait for professional first responders, these brave strangers worked together. One reached for the door handle, another banged on the glass, and someone else shouted out his name. They weren't just trying to help a stranger, they were fighting for the life of a young man who had a future brighter than most could imagine. Eventually, the door creaked open with a metallic groan, and the moment Alijah was pulled from the burning wreck, it became clear just how close this tragedy had come to claiming a life. Shirtless, shoeless, barely conscious, Alijah was dragged across the wet pavement, the cold water pooling beneath him, contrasting with the searing pain in his body. He rolled on the ground, his movements disjointed and full of agony, desperately trying to breathe. The video, captured by the neighbor, is as harrowing as it is surreal. The sounds, sirens approaching, water splashing, voices calling out in panic, create a soundtrack of horror. Alijah's struggle to catch his breath, his body contorting in pain, painted a devastating picture of vulnerability. It wasn't long before paramedics arrived, their flashing lights casting eerie red and blue hues across the street. They worked quickly, carefully lifting Alijah onto a stretcher and wheeling him into the ambulance. The weight of the moment hung in the air like thick smoke, and even the firefighters and EMTs, hardened by years of experience, looked shaken. He was transported to a nearby hospital, where officials later confirmed he was in stable condition. But the word stable felt inadequate, almost cold. What did it really mean in this context? Did it mean he was out of danger? Was there internal damage? Could he walk again? Could he play again? The questions outnumbered the answers, and the silence from medical professionals did little to ease the concerns of those who knew and loved Alijah. News of the crash spread like wildfire, across social media, through group texts, in locker rooms, and basketball forums. It wasn't just another car accident, it was Alijah Arenas. He wasn't just some kid who played basketball, he was the future. The one who had the poise of a seasoned pro and the athleticism that made scouts' jaws drop. The same teen who only weeks ago had shared with the world that Adidas had signed him to a sponsorship deal, a rare feat for someone still in high school. A player whose name was becoming synonymous with promise. His father, Gilbert Arenas, was supposed to record a new episode of his podcast, Gil's Arena, that day. Instead, the studio stayed dark. There were no hot takes, no basketball debates, just an eerie silence, broken only by Gilbert's absence and the unspoken understanding that he was exactly where he needed to be, by his son's side. Laura Govan, Alijah's mother, took to Instagram. Her message was raw, unfiltered, and full of the emotion that only a mother could summon during a crisis. "I need all your fucking prayers," she wrote, the pain in her plea undeniable, the misspelling a clear sign of her mental state. This wasn't just a post. It was a cry for hope, a demand for the universe to spare her son, to not take away the light of her life. Fans responded. Celebrities responded. Fellow athletes, coaches, friends, and strangers filled the comment sections with prayer hands, heart emojis, and words of encouragement. For once, social media was a place of solidarity rather than division. A collective digital vigil emerged, each post a candle, each share a silent prayer. In a matter of hours, Alijah's crash became one of the most talked about stories in sports. But beneath the headlines and hashtags was something even more profound, a stark reminder of how fragile life can be, especially when you're young, famous, and seemingly invincible. It didn't matter that Alijah had NBA DNA or million-dollar deals lining up. At that moment, he was just a kid fighting to breathe. As the day wore on, bits of information began to surface. The exact cause of the crash remained unclear. Was it a mechanical failure? Speed? Fatigue? Distraction? The investigation was ongoing, and the LAPD remained tight-lipped. But one thing was certain. Alijah had hit a fire hydrant, and that single impact had likely saved his life and endangered it at the same time. The geyser from the hydrant may have slowed the flames, but it also turned the crash site into a surreal nightmare. Those who know Alijah personally describe him as humble, focused, and relentless. A quiet storm. Someone who could go from a soft-spoken interview to a jaw-dropping dunk in a matter of minutes. And perhaps most importantly, someone who knew the weight of his father's name but never tried to ride on it. He was determined to build his own legacy, one bucket at a time. Coaches who recruited him saw more than talent. They saw leadership. Teammates saw a brother. Fans saw a star in the making. And yet, on that Thursday morning, he was just a boy caught between life and death. In the hours following the accident, candlelight vigils began forming. Some virtual, others in person. Outside his high school, classmates gathered to pray. Someone placed a basketball at the front gates with a handwritten note. "Come back stronger, 24. That was his number, and those 3 words became a rallying cry. Meanwhile, Gilbert and Laura remained by his side in the hospital, privately processing the trauma no parent ever wants to face. They weren't celebrities in that moment. They were just mom and dad. 2 people clinging to hope, begging for signs, whispering prayers, and replaying the what-ifs. And Alijah, though unconscious at times, was still fighting. Every breath he took was a victory, every heartbeat a miracle. Doctors monitored him closely, mindful of potential complications. Burns, smoke inhalation, internal injuries. They were all possibilities. But the human spirit, particularly the spirit of an athlete, is a powerful thing. Over the next few days, updates would continue to trickle out, some from family, others from insiders. Fans watched closely, holding their breath with each new post. The road ahead was unknown, filled with physical and emotional rehabilitation. But for now, the most important thing was that he had survived. Survival was step 1. Healing would come next. And eventually, so would the comeback. Because if there's one thing everyone agreed on, it was this. Alijah Arenas isn't done. He may have been pulled from a burning truck, shirtless and shoeless, in the darkest hour of the morning, but his story didn't end on that street. It didn't end with sirens or stretchers. It didn't end with fire and pain. It began again, with courage.